Top Med Talk.
Well, hello, I'm Desiree Chappell, and this is Top Med Talk. We're coming to you live from the American Association of Nurse Anaesthetists 2019 Annual Congress in Chicago, Illinois. AANA 2019 is a gathering of over 3,000 certified registered nurse anesthetists, or CRNAs, for the largest networking and educational event in nurse anesthesia. Now, this year, the AANA has partnered with Top Med Talk to bring the meeting to our listeners. Over the course of 3 days, we've been sitting down with presenters, AANA leadership, and delegates to discuss hot topics in the CRNA community and anesthesia practice. Now, I'm joined by my co-host and editor-in-chief of Top Med Talk, Monty Mythen. Hello, Monty.
Hey, Desiree. Great to be here.
It is great to be here. This is our second year at the AANA.
It is. We had some really great conversations last year, but man, we've multiplied it this year.
We have. I think doing some of the discussions that we had and highlighting what the CRNAs are doing within their practice and within the AANA has been really cool.
And we've had fantastic support from the association. We're in a wonderful room here at the moment, decked out to entertain our guests and to talk to them, and we also have space in the trade exhibition. We
do. So if you're around and you're listening to the podcast and you're here at the AANA 2019, you can stop by our booth and check that out.
And either join in with our silent opera technology to listen to some podcasts, some Q&A, or some cool sounds, because in between... Joel, who's with us, who's also a DJ, plays some pretty cool tracks.
So it's good stuff. Yeah. So I know that sounds interesting and intriguing, so just stop by and you can check it out.
If you see us dancing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
We're in that phase.
So, Monty, we've had some really interesting topics for discussion, and what we're going to be talking about during this particular podcast is emotional intelligence and occupational stress levels. And we're joined by Andrea Bittinger, who's a CRNA. She's an admissions and clinical coordinator at Oakland University for the Beaumont Graduate Program of Nurse Anesthesia in Troy, Michigan. Andrea, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
And thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing just great.
Good.
Thank
Have you been enjoying the conference so far?
The conference has been fantastic. Chicago is a perfect place to host a conference.
Yeah, it is. Well, Monty was saying earlier how much he loves Chicago.
I do too.
It's a great place.
And you're from Troy, yeah?
I live in Troy, Michigan. Yeah, the hospital is actually located in Royal Oak, Michigan.
I've been to Troy.
Have you?
Yeah, there we go. There's not many. I don't know many people around the world can say that.
We'll have to chat about that. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Well, Andrea, I know that you have recently done a research and gotten your DNP, and for your research topic, it was talking about the relationship between emotional intelligence and occupational stress levels among certified registered nurse anesthetists specifically. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got interested in this topic? Because, emotional intelligence is kind of a hot thing right now that people are talking about. So tell us how you were interested in that.
It is a hot topic. However, I had really not heard of it until February of 2015 when I attended the Assembly of School Faculty meeting. It was in New Orleans, and the first speaker at the meeting was Dr. Carell Canoy, who is a psychologist, a PhD psychologist at William Beaumont University. And she had been asked by one of our nurse anesthesia programs in the country to utilize emotional intelligence as one of their primary criteria for admission into nurse anesthesia practice. And I had been doing admissions for our nurse anesthesia program since 2003, but I always felt like there was maybe something we were missing when we were admitting our students, something we were not assessing, which would help to make a student successfully matriculate through the program. And when she started speaking about all the different components about emotional intelligence, I just was fascinated. I thought, this could be it. This could be, something that we're missing and that we need to be assessing. So when she was done speaking, I ran up to her and I said, I got to learn more about this topic. And so she invited me down to William Beaumont University to take a course in emotional intelligence. So I became the first CRNA in the country to become certified in emotional intelligence, which was fascinating. But then her and I sat down an extra day and talked about how to utilize EI in an admission process. And she cautioned me to make it the only assessment tool. There's a lot of different criteria, but we talked about how to incorporate it into an interview. And so that was my plan. And then the next month I started my DNP. And I knew I wanted to study EI for my DNP. And I really wanted to look at it in students. But for your doctorate project, you cannot look at students. So then I thought, well, I'll look at EI and CRNAs. I'll just replicate a study that's been done. And what I found, it had not been studied at all. There was no literature about emotional intelligence in certified registered nurse anesthetist. What I did find, what kept coming up, was emotional intelligence in nursing. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the literature had to do with stress and burnout. So that became my topic. I was going to do a springboard study on emotional intelligence and certified registered nurse anesthetist. So with the help of my great committee and the Michigan Association of Nurse Anesthetists, I was able to complete a descriptive study on assessing those levels.
So within the context of this conversation, for those people out there who may not be familiar with the term emotional intelligence, I'm guessing we all would make up our own version of what it means. What's your elevator pitch definition?
Well, I actually have my own definition, and it's the ability to perceive, integrate, understand, and utilize emotions in an effective and meaningful way in order to cope and adapt to the situation.
Fantastic. Yeah. Is that on Wikipedia yet? It should be.
I was going to say, at some point, I want people to Google search EI, and the Bittinger definition will pop up. I figure it's a B. It might be the top one coming up. There's a lot of different definitions of it, and it depends on each individual who's defining it.
The context, I guess, of where it's coming from.
Psychologists have one way of looking at it. There's various psychologists that have been known to be famous for it.
So you'd guess to survive as a clinician, as a nurse, for example, that your EI would, to survive, to stick at the career long term, your EI would be high.
One, you would think, and there's a lot of different components of it. Mine was actually quite low when I got myself tested, and there were some aspects of it that were fascinatingly high and fascinatingly low. What's interesting, though, is if an individual was to have an emotional intelligence assessment, it's one of those, it's something that can be worked on and can be improved. You can be educated, you can be coached, you can improve it. Unlike IQ, which typically peaks in the high 20s, early 30s, your emotional intelligence can it can increase, but it can also decrease as your life goes on. So it's something that you can work on.
So a couple of quick examples. How does good EI, high EI scores manifest itself clinically, and what does bad look like?
Well,
the two ends of the spectrum.
Somebody that has high emotional intelligence, and I think about the operating room environment.
Yeah.
We don't have the ability to, when you talk about in the business world, if somebody's arguing with you or you're you can step out of the room and take a deep breath. Yeah. We can't do that in the operating room. They're focusing on the patient, but we can also be in some hostile situations. So having a higher level of emotional intelligence will, number one, allow you to be able to process really what's going on in the argument or the hostility or just the panic situation, and be able to, gather your thoughts, focus on the patient, and take care of the situation later on.
And if I wanted to try and determine my EI, is there a website I can go to and a little test I can do?
There are. Okay. However, the more readily available a test would be, the less robust and reliable it will be.
So you can't take one on Facebook.
Yeah. So if I really want to know, how should I?
For the study that I used one that was 33 questions, and the publisher or the creator of the test, had it on the tool that I used, that it was out there and readily available. But it's not going to give you a very good description of your highs and your lows and what you can do. I mean, there's two of the most common assessments and most highly sought after assessments are it's called the Mesquite, and it's the Myers-Salivate-Caruso evaluation of emotional intelligence, and then there's the Multi-Health System 2.0. So you have to pay for them, though, and they are much more robust, and they will take some time. I know the EQI 2.0 is 133 questions, but it's a lot more precise on the various factors. Each test also looks at emotional intelligence in a different model of how EI is assessed and how individuals have the different components of it. So the one I got certified through is the Multi-Health EQI 2.0, and it's a fabulous assessment, and then the results are very readily available.
And you said that you were suggesting you should factor, which sounds it should be normal to factor it into interviewing any clinician for a job, and possibly anyone for any job. But what's practical from that perspective? Can you do it at interview, or is it best to do a pre-test?
I think you could do both. The thing is, we have no data about nurse anesthesia and nurse anesthesia students as to which emotional intelligence components will make a student successful through a program, through the career. So I have to be cautious on just using that, or even coming up with a way of assessing and making sure that this is a certain criteria based upon a score. Okay. What we do for our program at Oakland University Beaumont is we have we have one area of our interviews, one room that assesses their emotional intelligence, and we utilize situation-based questions, which hone in on some of the key components that we at our program feel are essential for a student to be successful in our program. And we model that after the EQI 2.0 assessment of emotional intelligence, which is 15 different criteria, which is stress reduction, empathy. There's various factors. And so we as a faculty met and decided, the 5 most essential components for our program. And then we modeled questions or created questions based upon that.
And what are the 5?
Well, I can't reveal that.
Oh, you're not supposed to.
I cannot reveal that.
What are some of them?
We feel probably one of the biggest things is stress tolerance, the ability to tolerate stress.
That's for sure.
Flexibility is another one that we feel is very important.
So if someone wanted to get information, if they're interviewing for like Monty said, for anything, even a job, where can you find a resource that kind of just talks you through some of those things? Because as you're saying, I'm like, oh, okay, how do I deal with stress? Or start to think about it a little bit more.
There are a lot of books out there. So I think, I was asked this question yesterday after I gave my talk, and I think you kind of have to maybe get on a website and look and see how the book reads, and if it's something that you like. I like the Stein book and Conoy, and they're, of course, because I was trained under the multi-health system, but it's a very easy book to read as far as how they describe the different emotional intelligence components. And they actually have examples of people that would have high EI in those categories or low, and then how you could go about improving them in situations that you might want to seek out so that you can improve your emotional intelligence. I think that's a great book. In fact, they have it's called the Student EQ Edge, and we advocate that our students read that before they come into the program so that they can kind of brush up or just realize that there's a certain skill set that's going to be essential for their success.
For sure. Oh, go ahead.
It struck me, is there any evidence to suggest the fact that people who want to understand more about their EI and who try and improve their EI have a higher EI?
You're going to ask something like that.
My hunch is it would be.
Yeah, one would think. And I don't know that there's literature out there to prove that. I can tell you, though, before I took the course, and there, like I said, my score was I wasn't real thrilled with it. And there were some areas where I knew that I was really bad in, and then some I was surprisingly high in. I would like to see myself assessed now because I know that the areas that I was low on, I've really tried to improve upon. I've tried to, I know one of them was flexibility, because I am totally not a flexible person as far as routines. I don't like to get out of my comfort zone. But knowing that, I have pushed myself to get out of my comfort zone, to try new things, to explore new possibilities. This being one of them.
That's good. Yeah, podcast sitting down with us.
Does that mean you sort of have a pause when something's happening? You have a little pause and say, "I wonder if I'm just being inflexible here."
Correct.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. I do have to. Be in touch with myself. Yeah. I think what was most important, and this meeting really has helped me to bring this topic to the forefront, is, what I found in my study was the fact that the higher the level of emotional intelligence for a CRNA, the lower their stress level. And stress is an occupational syndrome. Stress and burnout is really something that all healthcare providers are experiencing, and especially CRNAs. We talked about that a lot at this meeting. And I feel really strongly about the fact that if we can help our CRNA community learn more about their own emotional intelligence and improve it, that possibly they would have better ability to deal with the stressors that we're facing, and that will help with decreasing burnout and increasing longevity in the profession. Yeah. And I think that's really important.
Absolutely, it is. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, gosh, I wish my department. All of us could take an emotional, and it probably would be worth the investment.
Correct.
To have them do something, to have all departments. It doesn't matter what if it's anesthesia or healthcare or whatever. But there's a lot of self-inspection that a lot of people don't necessarily want to do. And if you give people like, oh, here we're going to do this, not test, you don't want to call it a test, but evaluation kind of thing. That opens people up a little bit more to be able to discuss it.
Correct.
I would imagine.
Yep.
Instead of going at them and say, I think your emotional intelligence, is low.
Right. And the other thing too is, it would be great to have, people get it assessed and get an instruction on it, but you have to revisit it. It's not like you can just do it one time and be done with it. You would have to do it. My husband's company has a consulting firm that comes in and does an EI assessment on people every year, and they revisit that. And he's not in healthcare. So I always think, we have people's lives in our hands, and we need to take care of ourselves so we can take care of those people. And this is one component that we can use to take care of ourselves.
It's interesting. We're one of the few, huge amounts of money in healthcare. We're one of the few industries that doesn't have regular health checks.
Correct.
Oh, it's so true. Mm-hmm. It is very
whether
true.
It's emotional or physical.
Isn't
that just weird?
And we just let things go, and we know better.
Yeah.
I think as well.
Well,
I do.
Yeah.
Of course you do. How's that finger? I think it's true. Andrea, this is a fascinating topic.
Thank you.
I love that you've done this, and congratulations on the work that you're doing.
I really have enjoyed. When I started my doctorate, people were saying, well, just get it done, because I really wanted to look at EI in students. They're like, just get it done, and then you can do that later on. And landing on this topic and doing the research and finding, that it had not been done before, and what it could possibly do for our profession has just been amazing. I love this topic. I really, really do. I loved my research. I presented it. This is the 13th time that I've presented. I presented last year at Ohio State at their summit on well-being and resilience in healthcare. I'm hoping to get this published and do some further research, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. I really do think that we have a bright future in incorporating this into our anesthesia education as well as our professional development.
And if we want to dip our toe in, where's a simple place to look to just get a quick teaser on this? Where should we? Any particular website or article? Or?
I think, and like I said, there's a lot of different assessment tools out there and definitions and things like that. So, I would think you could, Google search it and look at what appeals to you, because no matter what you do, you're going to be exposed to it. I have access to be able to assess individuals. If people want to contact me, I can set that up. It's a very robust, but it does have a cost associated with it. So it just depends. But there are free ones, that you can find. Mm-hmm.
Any good podcasts you come across?
Not quite yet. I listened to a poor one a couple of weeks ago, so I wasn't real happy with it.
Let's do one.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, we know one.
Yes.
We know a good one that you could work with.
Yeah.
Because I think the important piece of it is just getting the information out there.
Correct.
and
awareness.
And awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
About it, about the
sure
topic.
Is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, Andrea, congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much.
And what you're doing. I can feel your passion, and I love it. It's really great.
I do. I was telling when I was speaking about it yesterday, I wake up sometime between 2 and 4 every day. And it's usually, this is what I want to look at, or a new study or something that has kind of piqued my interest about this topic and how it can help our profession and our patients in the future, because that's what it's all about.
Ultimately, absolutely,
it really is.
100%. Well, again, thank you. I look forward to talking to you again, hopefully sooner than later.
Definitely would love to do that. That would be fantastic.
And if people want to reach out to you and find you for more guidance in this, or they want to take a test, or they just are interested in it, what's the best way to do that?
My email. I can definitely say that. So that is Andrea Bittinger. So it's ANDREA.BITTINGER at Beaumont.org. And Beaumont's BEAUMONT.org. I'd be happy.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah,
as well,
that would be great. I would love to have more dialogue with people, or be able to help in any way that I can.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Well, thanks to everyone for listening. Be sure to reach out to Andrea if you have questions. I think that she's a great resource. We'll be, like Monty said, putting that stuff in the show notes. Be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're there, and we're going to be coming to you over the next couple days here at AANA 2019. And thanks for listening.
Top Med Talk.
Nick Majerison here. Thanks for listening to Top Med Talk. Now, before we let you go, it's important that we remind you to subscribe to Top Med Talk. That way you'll never, ever miss another episode. Also, if we could encourage you to join us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, pretty much every single social media platform, we're there. Join us. And finally, check out topmedtalk.com. If you go to our website, you can subscribe to email updates. That way we can always tell you where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, and how you can join us. topmedtalk.com, and click on the section marked email updates. Finally, Top Med Talk is proud to act as the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about them as well. ebpom.org is their website. That's ebpom.org. And if you go to ebpom.org/meetings, you can find out about some of the wonderful meetings that we attend and cover across the year here on Top Med Talk. That's ebpom.org/meetings.